All right, we got the new CloudBreakers in, and this isn't some new Signature Series DD3. This is not the CloudBreaker 4. No, this is the CloudBreaker. This is a brand new mold, an Eagle Man Creator Series disc. He tweaked it to kind of fit what he wanted out of a driver. Now, is this going to be more overstable, less overstable than the DD3 or the old CloudBreaker 3s that just came out? How are they going to compare in flight? How is about the feel? Is it going to feel much different at all, or is it pretty much the same feel in the hand? And what about this new plastic? So let's check it out, starting with the feel. Now, right when I got these discs in, they felt great in the hand. Like, it doesn't feel, so I've got some of the older DD3s and a CloudBreaker 3 that I reviewed back in last off season, and this new CloudBreaker doesn't feel quite as wide as these old DD3s. I say old, these are still new DD3s. But one thing with these new DD3s, like, they feel just pretty big in the hand. Like, they almost feel closer to like a 13-speed rim, even though it's listed as a 12-speed driver. The rim feels pretty big. The CloudBreaker doesn't feel quite as big. Now, is it smaller, like something like my 11-speed drivers? No, it's definitely not. It's still pretty wide, but it feels a little bit more comfortable in the hand than the DD3s with my smaller hand size. Now, the DD3s feel a little sharper, but that could be due to the wider rim. I don't know, but it doesn't feel, they feel pretty similar in terms of depth, though, of these two drivers. If you look at them side by side, like, they look very, very close. Like, the differences are so minute, but I mean, that's with a lot of discs. A lot of discs are just such minute details, and with discs that can change the flight immensely. Then with the plastic, so the stamp says it's a special blend S-line plastic, which was the same thing that the CloudBreaker 3s said, but you can tell that this plastic is very different. So the S-line of the CloudBreaker 3, it was a little stiffer. Like, it had a pretty good grip to it, but it was a little stiffer. So when it got a little colder, like in the fall or winter, it was just like rock solid. Like, it was pretty stiff. But this one has a really nice give to it. It's not gummy by any means, but it feels really nice. Some people think it's like the Royal Grand plastic, which I can see the similarities. I personally think it's like slightly different plastic, but who knows? Like, it's one of those things where you won't know unless you're like in the factory making it, or if UC tells you, which I doubt UC's gonna tell you whether or not it's the same. But it really doesn't matter to me. Like, it's solid plastic, it feels good, it has a good give to it, and it's just very comfortable to hold in the hand. So one thing I did notice about this disc is that I had a little bit of a speck in the plastic, like almost like something got in the mold when this one was made. This is one of the only ones that I got in with that's why I'm using it for the review, and the other one is a lot smaller, but I'm going to be marking that one down anyways. But all the other ones that I got were completely fine, and they had some pretty sick swirls and stamp colors, and they're pretty awesome. And I'm gonna have those at apollodiscgolf.com, and like always, I'll have the link in the description. So I don't know how like prevalent that's gonna be, but like I said, I only got 2 out of the batch that I got that had this. The rest were completely fine, but it is worth noting that some of them have some imperfections. But yeah, so how does this fly compared to these? All right, so getting into the flight of this, this is a couple days later, just because that first day I was getting exhausted. It was getting nighttime and dark, and I just was not throwing these well at all. So it was really hard to get good flights out of them. I would put them in stabilities like this, honestly, if I were to do it. The CloudBreaker was probably the straightest. When thrown flat, it flew the farthest straight, and before it dumped out on me, and then the CloudBreaker was next. So this still went pretty far straight before it dumped, and then this C-Line DD3 was the most overstable. Now, that could be a couple of reasons. One, I think just with the wider rim, it's just harder for me to get a good throw on it. This one's just easier to throw for me just because this rim is slightly smaller. It feels a little bit more comfortable in my hand. So is this like the CloudBreaker for everyone, for the masses? Yes Yeah, I would say so. But the flight, like, yeah, it's more accessible than the C-Line DD3s in the sense that it is not as overstable. Because it has that smaller rim, it's easier, at least for me in smaller hands, to get a good flight out of it. It's a little bit easier than the DD3. The rim is just so big on this DD3. It's harder for me to get a good rip on them. So in that sense, yes. And honestly, for forehands, it'd be great as well. It's a great stability for a workable forehand, especially if you can smash on forehand. This would be great. But really, this is just gonna be a stable flying disc. So it's not gonna turn for you much, unless you can throw it. Unless you can really, like, for the pros, which if you're one of the touring pros, I don't understand why you would be watching this to find out how this CloudBreaker flies. But this will bomb probably for those who can throw over 450 a little bit. And it'll be very workable, like stable destroyer, not like a Halo destroyer, but like a nice stable destroyer, like a standard stock destroyer. This would probably be really good really workable for like cannons of arms, which is like Eagle's probably gonna shred with it. And rightly so, because this is a great disc for This is a great disc for Eagle McMahon, of course. For us mere mortals, this is just gonna be slightly overstable. I couldn't really get it to turn very much. Like even in a wind, like it was like 10, 15 mile an hour headwind, and I threw this flat and it just dead straight. Didn't really turn at all. Like you can see it kind of wanted to, but it didn't, and then it just faded left for me. But honestly, if you're looking for just like a nice, stable CloudBreaker distance driver from Discmania, this is it. This thing's great. I honestly think it's the best one because it's just so comfortable in the hand compared to the old ones. So, but honestly, if you can't get this up to speed, I don't know. I'm still an advocate of just throwing something that's more suited for your arm speed. And I talk a little bit about that in this video, talking about just like why I don't really throw high-speed drivers. I throw slightly slower speeds. So if you're wondering about that, come watch that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.